Welcome to the maker's world, where every spark of an idea becomes something real. Right here in Czechia, we build tools that peer into particles and launch satellites into orbit. It's where the word robot was born. And Čapek's vision of automation still fuels the imagination of today's inventors. From prototypes shaped at Fab Labs to bold experiments led by students, entrepreneurs, and researchers. This is curiosity in motion. The next era begins with you, innovating, exploring, going further. From clean energy to quantum breakthroughs, we're shaping what comes next. Over the next 8 days, FabX comes to life. 42 speakers, 255 sessions, 100 chances to get hands-on, 5 evenings of conversations that matter, and 6 mobile Fab Labs, arriving ready to build, share, and inspire. From every corner of the world, you're coming to be part of it. This isn't just an event. It's a celebration of making, sharing, and shaping what comes next.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to FAB25 Czechia. It is a wonderful view from up here. Oh, wow, thank you all for being here. This is a beautiful stage. All of this was designed and created by very talented stage designer Pavel Liška. And fun fact number 1, it was all created in a makerspace. And we started with a video made by creative studio Vizualove. And fun fact number 2, they're also part of Fab Lab family, just like me. Hi, I'm Sonia, and I'm honored to be your host for FAB25 right here in Brno and also later in Prague. And let me just say, seeing the global maker community gather right here in our city for FAB25 is something very, very special. So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy the week ahead and the days spent both in Brno and in Prague. And you probably noticed that the auditorium is not as full as it should be. And if you are wondering where's more people, Czechia experienced a severe blackout today. This is not common at all here. But because of that, a lot of people got stuck in trains that are cancelled or delayed. But we really hope that all of them will make it at least for evening after party. Anyways, the day has come, and the flagship event for Fab Labs, innovators, educators, artists, and makers has finally came back to Europe after 7 years, taking the imaginary torch from Mexico. We have unforgettable week of keynotes, talks, hands-on workshop, working groups, networking, partying, and cultural experiences ahead of us. And yes, we've prepared a jam-packed program, as promised, and we hope you can fully immerse yourself in both the program and a rich Czech culture. In fact, you have 2 cities to explore and unique venues, and you are now sitting in one of them. This is Janáček Theatre, a home of National Theatre Brno, named after a famous Czech composer of classical music, Leoš Janáček. And I think it provides just the right setting for an event like ours. And as it might not seem like it, I'm now standing on the biggest stage in Central Europe. It goes all the way to the back. And if you like numbers, it's 18 by 24 meters. And yes, my legs are now shaking, but we brought some of the biggest names of maker world, so we needed a big stage for them, and even bigger seating area for all of you guys. There are a few hundreds of you from all over the world, so thank you again for being here. And let's get started. Today, is the official opening of FAB25, and we are kicking things in a big way. You will hear from the people who made this event possible, the organizers, partners, sponsors, and local supporters. Then you'll hear our first keynote, and we'll wrap up with an evening full of live music, hopefully good conversation and relaxed vibe right here in the theater foyer. But before we get to that, and to start properly, we would like to thank our partners who made FAB25 possible, because without their support, we would not be able to organize such a grand event. So, our general partner is Prusa Research, and here are other partners of FAB25. Xtool, Chevron, Dassault System and SolidWorks, the Fab City Foundation, Škoda Auto, the Innovation Center of the Ústí nad Labem region, Masaryk University Brno, Brno University of Technology, ESA BIC Czech Republic. Technological partners of this event are Mechanica, Trotec and Megaflex, and our media partners are Hexter.io and Make. FAB25 is also supported by major local stakeholders: City of Brno, South Moravian Region, JIC Innovation Agency, Kunst Creative Hub, National Theatre Brno, but also Prague City Hall, Prague Exhibition Grounds, the European Union, Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport. And the event is held under the patronage of the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel himself, and the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Petr Fiala. All of these partners came together to make FAB25 happen right here in Czechia and on this incredible scale, and for this they truly deserve a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. But let's be honest, none of this would be happening without the organizers, so I'll gladly introduce them to you one by one, and let's start with the local ones. First one, Make More, an organization that's been supporting the Czech maker community since 2018. They run over 10 maker fairs across the country, bring hands-on workshops into school, and work hard to build a national infrastructure for makerspaces and Fab Labs. Up next, Czech Association of Open Workshops connects Fab Labs, makerspaces, and open workshops across the country. It supports collaboration, knowledge sharing, and helps grow the Czech maker infrastructure as a whole. And last but not least, Fab Lab Brno, the very first Fab Lab in the country, launched in 2017 as a hardware incubator. Today, it is one of Europe's leading Fab Labs with 24/7 access, over 400 active members, a mobile Fab Lab that visits 8,000 students every year, and a strong role in STEM education and European projects. So now, please welcome someone who's been at the heart of it all. He founded Fab Lab Brno, built it from the ground up, and today he leads the region's largest STEM education organization. Here to officially welcome you on behalf of both Make More and Fab Lab Brno, please give it up for my boss, Tomas Maze League.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Czechia. Welcome to Brno. I'm here on behalf of Fab Lab Brno and Make More, the local hosts of this year FabX. And we've been dreaming of this moment for years, and I'm so excited and so proud of everyone involved. But let me open Fab Conference with a short story of how we ended up here. Flashback to 2016, FabX in Shenzhen. I remember bringing blueprints and sketches of our future Fab Lab Brno there and receiving amazing feedback and encouragement. And, but what struck me really most in Shenzhen was the spirit of the community. Open, curious, global, and generous. Fast forward to 2019, FabX in Egypt. I remember night after the event, I'm sitting in a bar with Mark Lamberts from Fab Lab Leuven. He's somewhere here, helping us with workshops this year. And we were discussing the future of Fab Labs, how we can really make the most impact, the biggest impact, and to use the full potential of Fab Labs. And that's where the seed was planted. That's where the idea of bringing FabX to Czech Republic was born. And 3 months later, Make More organized the very first Maker Fair in Brno. And after the event, we came to each other and said, let's do something big. Let's do something great. And let's do something together. And in a Fab world, what is bigger or greater than FabX? So we decided to go for it. We hired Jan Dvorháček, who became the heart of FAB25, and start preparing for the pitch contest that happened next year. Apparently, we did a good job. We won the contest. And then the real work started. A lot of hard work, a lot of fun, and also some struggles. But I want to point out or highlight one thing from the preparation phase. We decided to put together a group of 50 European Fab Lab leaders that help us shape the event, that helped us design the program, production and marketing, and they became the core of the event itself. So even though we are officially at the event called FAB25 Czechia, we can also call it FAB25 Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, we did everything we could to make this event as good as possible. But now it's your turn. Squeeze it. Squeeze it to the last drop. Squeeze the potential, squeeze the friendship, squeeze the experience, squeeze the inspiration. The more you give, the more you get. Enjoy the event, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Tomas Maze League, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Make More and Fab Lab Brno. Now let's switch to international organizers. I think we could all agree that FAB25 wouldn't be FabX without two organizations and two special people from the heart of Fab world. The visionaries who sparked global movement and continue to guide it forward. It all started at the Center for Bits and Atoms at MIT, the birthplace of Fab Lab concept. What began as an experiment in digital fabrication turned into something much, much bigger. A global idea open to anyone, everywhere, who wants to learn by making. To help that idea grow, the Fab Foundation was created, and since 2009, they've been building the network, connecting people, and opening up access to tools, knowledge, and opportunity. Today, there are over 3,000 Fab Labs in more than 160 countries. So now, please join me in welcoming two people who've been with this movement from the very beginning. Director of the Center for Bits and Atoms at MIT, Neil Gershenfeld, and President and CEO of the Fab Foundation, Sherry Lassiter.
Videta, welcome.
Thank you. On behalf of Center for Bits and Atoms, I'm delighted to welcome you. I want to thank the city, the region, the country, the world for everything that went into making this possible. This is easily my favorite annual event. It's the most diverse gathering I know, rural, urban, north, south, east, west, tall, small, sort of any axis you can think is represented here. On the other hand, it's not at all diverse because I find it's the same person in all these different packages, that it's this room full of change agents transforming the world. So I have two suggestions. One is, after all this work, you'll blink and the meeting's over. It's going to go by so quickly. What really matters is the legacy of the meeting, the things that radiate out for the next year. And then the second suggestion is, this is a really unusual gathering where everybody here is remarkable. And so I encourage you, if you see anybody you don't know, just to introduce yourselves to them. And for that, let me hand off to Sherry.
So we're serious about that. So what I'd like for you to do right now is take 1 minute, look around you, and either introduce yourself to someone that you have never met or connect with someone that you haven't seen in the last year or two. So everybody, 1 minute, counting now.
Go.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Let's sit down again. Let's sit down again. And so, Vítejte means welcome. And I just want to know, I think all of you, or many of you, use the WhatsApp application, the group called FAB25. Those of you who don't, it's really, really interesting because what happens is it's like watching a wave come. You're a surfer and you're sitting out in the water and you watch the wave form and then you see it get bigger and bigger and bigger and then you just jump in and you ride the wave all the way to the end. And so it's been very much like that watching the WhatsApp group this week. We start with, how do you get here? So everybody shares knowledge about how they get here. So some come by plane, some come by boat, by sea, some come by rail, some come by foot, some come by car. And then, of course, the first group this year to post was the Mexico team, FAB24 Mexico. Welcome, you guys, wherever you are. And then we have, China and Singapore and, different parts of the world. The Fab team here is working so hard to get ready for you and to make everything absolutely perfect. And then people start sharing, okay, what are the best sites to see? Where's the best food? Where's the best cake? That's a really good one. Where's the best bar? And that's a very popular subject on the scene. This is where is the best Aperol Spritz, and that's one I'm going to follow, I think. And then it's just people gathering, coming together. How do you get around? There's advice for everything and minutia that is beyond the belief. But really, what it's about is this: it's about coming back together and sharing knowledge and celebrating each other and celebrating this week of making, inspiring, discovering, innovating, collaborating, and going back to our communities to support them and bring digital fabrication into the service of their resilience and well-being. So I hope you enjoy this week. I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope you work hard too. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil and Terry, everyone. And we'll hear more from them later today. I didn't know they will start the first networking party. It was short but wonderful. Since we just met the organizers behind FAB25, I think it's now a perfect time to talk to the people who've been driving innovation in this region long before this event. At the heart of every strong innovation ecosystem, there are people and institutions who believe in a long-term progress, even when the results aren't immediate. And today, we are joined by 3 leaders who have been shaping this region's future in different but connected ways. So please welcome Governor of South Moravian Region, Jan Grolich. He's a strong supporter of innovation and STEM education. Under his leadership, South Moravia has become one of the top regions in Czechia for technology startups and entrepreneurship. Our next panelist is Brno City Chancellor for Strategic Development, Mr. Martin Příborský. Mr. Příborský works on Brno's long-term vision, leading projects that support innovation, sustainability, and smart urban growth to ensure Brno stays active and ready for the future. And our third panelist is Chief Strategy Officer at JIC Innovation Agency, Mr. David Uhlíř. And I just add that David developed the first generation of the regional innovation strategy in 2002. He helped launch the very first Fab Lab in Czech Republic, and for over 20 years he's been shaping innovation strategy in South Moravia. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome on stage. Okay, I'll start with the first question. Mr. Governor, As I mentioned, the South Moravian region is considered one of the most innovative regions in Czechia, even beyond. So what do you think makes this possible? What are the key factors behind this success?
Thank you and welcome. Welcome here in the region, which is called by Forbes magazine as a brain of the Czech Republic. And so it's great to be the head of this region because it means I'm the head to the brain of the Czech Republic. And I think it's because we have great ecosystem here, because we have 3 big universities, we have many companies, high-tech companies, and we have JIC, South Moravian Innovation Center, and I think we have quite good relationships even with the Brno government and regional government with these high-tech companies and these universities, and that makes the ecosystem. And I've heard recently one idea that standard procedures bring standard outcomes. But usually we need some standard. You, for example, want the same burger every time, the same taste, and then you want the people to follow the standard procedures. But from time to time, you need something extraordinary. You need to change something. We as politicians need to solve some problems in society, and then you have the ecosystem, and when you squeeze it, as Tomas, the big boss, said before, you can have this over-standard, extraordinary outcomes because we have the brains, we have well-educated people, we have crafted people, and when it goes together, something extraordinary can develop.
Mr. Příborský, I know that Brno has a strong tradition of engaging the public with science and technology. Institutions like Vida Science Center with interactive exhibition or Brno Observatory, they reach hundreds of thousands of people each year. Why is it important for a city like Brno to support science outreach and informal education?
So first of all, hello everybody, welcome in Brno. We have also a lot of American friends. I would say Happy Independence Day. But please don't become too independent, stay with us. Well, back to your question. You know, we are not Prague. Prague is beautiful, you will see, or maybe you have seen already. It's rich, you have the government institutions, you have the headquarters of all the big companies seated in the Czech Republic. In Brno, we are much more smaller and sober and so on, and we have to do much more to be successful. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy that currently also the city representation and the regional representation have the same vision of the future, that it really should be based on innovation. And for innovation, we need smart people. We have the universities, we have a lot of students, but we need more. We need more. We are trying to attract, for example, educated professionals as expats. We are trying to attract PhD students and so on. And of course, we need to invest in education and to raise new generations which would be interested in science and technology. And that's why these institutions like Vida, for example, or the observatory are very important, because they do much more than we would expect normally. They have a lot of projects to popularize science and technology. And also, I think it's because they have very good leadership. Now, Vida has a new leadership, so we hope it will be even better, and they will grow faster. And we are ready to support it, because we think this is the right way for the future. Mm-hmm.
So to somehow sum it up, what do you see are the real benefits of investing in these kinds of public-facing activities?
Basically, we attract interesting companies. Mm-hmm. We invest, and I think for the development of the city as such, it's important to have good employers also for our citizens. And I think also we have to change according to the world is changing. Of course, there are some businesses, some industries which are phasing out, mm-hmm. and we need to be flexible and get ready for the future. So I think we can only expect benefits for our local economy if we really bet and invest in innovation.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to point out one important idea, because as it was said, we need more smart people. So don't go home.
Stay
Don't
here.
go to Prague. Stay here in Brno, okay?
We need you, stay here. Okay, David, I know JIC played a key role in launching the very first Fab Lab in Czech Republic, Fab Lab Brno. What inspired you to introduce this concept back then?
I can't actually locate in time exactly the moment when it happened, but it must be around 12 years ago, I think, when a colleague of mine, Michal Hrabi, who participated in a very interesting study visit to the United States organized by the US State Department, and he came back. At that time, he was running the startup program, the accelerator we had at that time, and he came back and said, I saw something really interesting in San Francisco. They call it Tech Shop, and it's like a place where you can come and do your own things. They train you how to weld, how to laser cut things, and I think this is a missing component in our support for startups. And so we thought, okay, it looks interesting. So we did a little bit of research and thought, okay, this will help us to generate more startups in the hardware area, more tangible products. So explored it a little bit, spoke to the politicians. They liked the idea. And it became part of the strategy of the region to support innovation that we built this Fab Lab. It turned out that we miscalculated things. Actually, Tech Shop in San Francisco went bankrupt a few years later, which is a pity. And it turned out that the main benefit for the innovation ecosystem of Fab Lab was not so much that it would generate startups, but it created a community of people who like to make things, started to develop a pool of skilled people, and it eventually turned out to be a critical player in the education policy. With the mobile Fab Lab, it started to visit secondary schools and primary schools in the region. So it was quite a learning journey, I would say. This is innovation policy, so we have to be open to making mistakes. It's not always easy with public money to make mistakes, but luckily we have quite foresightful politicians in the region, and usually they excuse us if we make mistakes that are not too big. So that's how it all started, some 12 years ago. Then we hired Tomas Maze League to run the project, and launched the first Fab Lab 2016, 17, I think it was.
You kind of said it, but how do you see the role of Fab Lab now for the region and for the country as a whole?
Well, I think it's actually maybe even more important and critical than the initial conception was, right? Because if we want to nurture innovation, we really need to start with young people, kids even, and show them that they can do things with their own hands. They can master technology, which nowadays is very user-friendly. And if we do it well, it pays back in long run. In what has been mentioned already, right? You generate people who are innovative, who don't mind experimenting, but also you create a society that's resilient, because I think, sadly, in the current geopolitical context, we may often find ourselves in a situation where we need to rely more on ourselves, be ready to make things with our own devices and hands, and not import them from the other side of the globe. So I think that's why it is important to develop these skills and competencies. And that's what Fab Lab is doing now with the merger with Vida, which has been mentioned here. I mean, people who are not from Brno wouldn't know, but the idea is that we have a fantastic science learning center that has some 300,000 visitors annually. But of course, these people are exposed just to kind of very superficial exposure to science and technology engineering. It raises interest of kids, but doesn't go much beyond that. Fab Lab goes much deeper, much hands-on. And with the merger of these two institutions, which is planned for this year, we hope that we will be able to kind of have this big catchment of hundreds of thousands of people, but at the same time have a deeper immersion in tech and making. And I think if we sit here in another 10 years, I will probably find many, many thousands of people who have been exposed to these activities.
Yeah, thank you. I want to get a little bit more personal now. Our maker community, you in the audience probably knows it very well, but Mr. Governor, it's never an easy or a smooth path when you are trying something truly, truly new. And you are doing that. So what keeps you going when things get tough? Whether it's a political resistance, bureaucracy, or slow progress, when do you find the motivation for keep pushing for a change?
So first of all, you are talking about bureaucracy, but we are a modern regional government.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, but seriously, I came from my holiday last night, so my mind is still in Portugal. So, are there any people from Portugal?
Oh yeah. A few of them.
I had pastel de nata in my bag to bring it here as a dessert after my lunch today. So I'm still part of my mind is still on the surf or on the wave of the ocean. So
well, you've been surfing.
More time I was under my surf than on the top, but I tried. It's the same in the life of the politician, you know. So, I wanted to say something clever, but
sorry.
Yeah. But I really like to meet smart people, open-minded people, because it's true that me as a politician usually fight with the clerks who usually said it's not possible, we are not allowed to do it this way, etc., etc. So it's very refreshing to meet people who every time has some solution and try to find the way, and it makes me feel that I can do the same in the office and in my work when usually it has its own standards, but I try to do it differently, and from time to time it happens.
So if I ask you, where do you find your motivation? It's in surrounding yourself with the people that are smart and open-minded and willing to do things differently?
Discussion with smart and open-minded people from another area than politics and offices. For example, I like to talk with some CEOs of the companies or some non-profit organization, etc., people from universities, because they have different approach to their work, and it makes me feel that it's possible even in politics.
Cool. Mr. Příborský, I've learned that people who work on a long-term development of cities often talk about a turning point, like a moment when they realized they wanted to help shape how their cities grow and are evolving. So was there a moment like this for you? Maybe here in Brno, maybe back in school, when you thought, yes, this is what I want to do? Like, what brought you to this work?
What brought me to this work, you know, when people are young, they very often want to change the world. If they are talented, they invent something, like many of you, for example. If they are not talented, they join politics, for example.
Don't say that, you are talented, but differently.
But I was always interested in public affairs, like what is going on around me, and I was trying to influence it already when I was at the university, in the academic senate, or organizations like that. But I think the main reason was the curiosity. I was always curious to learn why and how decisions are made. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be part of it. And later, I didn't want to be a politician straight away after the university, so actually I started as a public official or a lawyer even, and I changed different professions. But at the end, I always wanted to be a politician, so I came back to Brno from abroad and started from the bottom, and it happened. You always need to be lucky and to meet the right people, the right moment. It happened that I was elected to the Brno Assembly, and I was asked to take the responsibility for strategic development and partly also issues like smart city, innovation, and so on. And I found this really interesting because I really believe in this, and it's really, I can feel very lucky that I can do something I believe in, and it's also interesting and brings me satisfaction. So I think the turning point was simply the last elections, but the whole life was kind of directing in this way. Yeah.
You mentioned that you wanted to learn how the decisions are being made. What did you learn?
I learned that it's really difficult.
Can imagine.
You know, we had a president, not the first one, the second one, who always, when he got some very difficult question and people were criticizing him for his decisions, he always was saying, you know, establish your own party and go to the elections and try it yourself. And I found this very arrogant at that time. But when I see now how difficult it is sometimes to really prepare a project, to have it approved, to have it realized, it takes years or even decades. Very often you just know that you want something, but you don't know whether it will actually happen, when it will happen, because the bureaucracy, which almost doesn't exist, but still a bit, is so heavy and is beyond your control that sometimes as a politician you just cannot say nothing concrete. You just can say, you know, I support this, I will push for it, but I don't know. Obviously we don't say we don't know, because then we look stupid, but it's reality. So I'm afraid I forgot your question, but this is what I wanted to say.
Not really, but would you like something to add, Mr. Governor, about decision-making process? Did you hack it somehow?
I have to do it myself, then it's done. But I wanted to say that one of the things which makes me feel better, so it's events like this, because I see the success of some organizations we support, of the people we support. So for me, this kind of events are really refreshing, because when there is such a big event and it starts in Brno and not in Prague, it's a really success for our region and for city of Brno. So I feel very great that you are not sitting in Prague, but here in Brno. And then, okay, you can go to see some historical monuments, etc. in Prague. But when you want to feel the vibe of innovative ecosystem, you have to be in Brno.
Guys, don't get us wrong, we love Prague. We really do. Just a little beef in there, but yeah. Anyways, David, working in an innovation strategy, from my perspective, often means making big bets and sometimes rethinking them. The world changes, technologies shift, and what once seems like a good approach might need a second look. So, have you ever changed your mind about something big in innovation policy or strategy, and what made you do it?
Well, I think many times. I mean, it's a constant questioning. Otherwise, it wouldn't be very innovative, I would say. I don't see any kind of inflection point that would be like 0, 1. But there's a number of things or moments which I recall that changed the way of thinking about how we do the innovation policy. One example would be, for a long time, we were thinking about innovation support directed towards SMEs and startups, right? And we knew that there were these big guys, big multinationals that are present here, like Red Hat and Thermo Fisher or Honeywell. And we didn't talk to them much, but then came a moment when, as part of a peer review of our innovation strategy, one colleague from Belgium asked, so why don't you involve the companies in the decision making? I said, really? I mean, this is public policy, isn't it? And so it started an internal discussion, then we started talking to the regional government about it. And we finally did make the turnaround in about 2014 that the Innovation Council, which is the kind of main body that supervises the innovation policy, the representatives of the businesses were invited to join. And eventually, a few years later, we gave them a majority vote. So in a sense, the companies can overvote the public sector, which 10 years ago I couldn't imagine, but nowadays it's quite a common practice. You know, we do it that way, and it turned out that the companies, the large companies, are actually one of the best ambassadors of the innovation policy. We didn't do much for them, it also changed over time that the companies like Honeywell started talking to us more and saying, look, we are interested in what the startups are doing. We are interested in what the region intends to do in areas like STEM education or the support for foreign nationals that come to our company to work here. And in many ways, I would say that these companies are now a main source of energy for new initiatives. So that's something I couldn't imagine. It took some time. I mean, there was an evolution rather than a revolution, but there are a few moments like that which happened over the years, and I think that it has to happen. I mean, we have to keep on questioning, otherwise we wouldn't be innovating.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get even more personal, David. I know you've seen it firsthand through your son, how Fab Lab experiences can shape people's journeys and lives. Can you share with the audience your personal story?
Yeah, well, okay. I have two children, two boys, right? And the older one was about 10 years old when we were opening the Fab Lab, and he was very curious in what was happening there, so he sort of came to see and eventually became a member of the Brno Fab Lab. And although I have no technical background and I'm not a maker myself, he really was completely absorbed by it. So he started to make his own things, and he just graduated from the secondary school this year, and got his first part-time job in a company where he's servicing 3D printers and doing maintenance for them. So I think that's an example which shows that with the right facilities, the right support, you can actually change the directions of people's careers. Yeah. And he's not the only one, actually. He has a few friends, so he brought them with him, and it's kind of spreading around. So, yeah.
New
so
generation.
that's the story.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's all we have time for, gentlemen. But thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting FAB25. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. And thank you again to all our partners and sponsors. We'll be introducing more of them in the coming days. But now let's turn to what truly brought us together. And I think we need to clear the stage, please. Guys. Thank you. Yeah, what's truly brought us together, and it's Make a Movement, of course, and our shared love for Fab Labs. So now, coming up next, we'll be listening to the story of a rising Czech maker movement over the past decade, a journey that led us here and hopefully towards even brighter future. So please welcome, in just a few seconds, head of Prusa Lab, and a key figure of Make More. Please welcome Andrej Kaspar.
Hello, guys. I will just ask for my clicker probably first. I'm so glad to see you here. It's awesome. My name is Andrej, and I'm a part of one of the organizers, Make More. I'm gonna give you a little tour through the stories of evolution Czech maker scene in Czech Republic. Well, it's over there.
Here you go.
Thank you. So, let's go. We are in the heart of Europe, as you know, and there was many interesting moments in the history of this country, and I would start with a few of them, just to give you a little overview and context. Then we go through another era, like 10 years ago, and then we arrived until today. This is the points I'm gonna guide you through. So, during 1920 to actually 1940s, there was a first republic, and the Czech Republic was actually the technological center becomes there after Austro-Hungarian Empire. There was lots of big names, huge factories, and also important inventors and inventions. You might probably know a few of them. For example, contact lenses by Otto Wichterle, polarography, nanofibers, propeller, or many more. And also, this was a really interesting time for our country. But afterwards, during the 70s, we were really touched by the communist era, the totalist regimes. But before we jump to this moment, there was also, it was already mentioned today, there was also a few crucial words that come up from the Czech Republic as well. The word golem, which is actually clay-made statue, kind of like helping people, made by Rabbi Lev in Prague. This is Jewish mysticism. And also Josef Čapek came up with the word robot, as you already heard in the beginning. It was actually for his brother's theater play, 1920. But, as I said, in our history is also this shady part, when people were rather creating for themselves, rather to be hidden and seek not to be seen. This tough period was mainly based on the creation because of lack of materials, technologies, and good solutions. So people were actually solving these problems by DIYs. And of course, creativity was still there. So I will give you a few of examples that I like this from this time. Maybe you know this from your country as well, but this is quite significant. It was lots of improvisations and experiments. For example, so here you can see the grass cutter made of old washing machine motor and wheels from children pushchair, right? And I'll give you one more. This is my favorite. You can see it in every single Czech village. It's a greenhouse made of old preserving jars. Yes. This creation could be seen with a little bit pejorative flavor because it's far from perfection, right? And also there is one series actually made by two influencers and quite well known. Probably you know it as well. It comes from 70s in Czech Republic. Can I ask for sound, please? These episodes have more than 10 million views on YouTube. And it becomes popular even before YouTube was here. Well, but as I said, we call this movement as a kutil movement. It's a Czech word labeling this kind of like not perfection stuff sometimes. And we feel that there is a time, need to be established some new term to give another view on making stuff, you know? Just establish the new connection between them. Point out that there is a maker movement. That in the West, we can get inspiration and we can publicly establish the new label for it, which is more about creating stuff and sharing, show and tell, collaborate. And it becomes even more attractive for younger generation. So 2018, we want to share this concept and thanks to the Maker Faire, and Dale will definitely talk about it later, we somehow manage it. So this is the second era of our history, I would say. And to be honest, there was already something to build on. And I will give you a few milestones, which what really shape this history. This guy in the middle, or maybe I will start from another point. This picture is from the first hackerspace in Prague, based on 2010. The guy in the middle is founder of the Trezor, the most popular Bitcoin hardware wallet on the world. And you might maybe recognize the guy staying just behind him is Josef Prusa. Yeah, Joe Prusa was also a regular member of this makerspace or hackerspace, and he built his first printer 2012 there, and started the first company out of it. I've been honored to work for European Capital of Culture in Pilsen 2015, and we've been there founding and traveling all around Europe to get the trends, to get the inspiration, to do cool stuff. And we were with the crew, first one asked to set up the first makerspace in Czech Republic. It was Makerspace in Depot 2015 in Pilsen. But then, as you already heard, 2017, the first proper Fab Lab opened the doors to the public, thanks to the progressive South Moravian Innovation Center here in Prague, here in Brno. Yes. And let's move to Prague. Also in Prague, there was a Fab Lab 2018 founded by Josef Prusa, let the factory open to public to see how the process is going and to be in touch with the locals and kind of give back to the community. Well, so those kind of milestones and movements are all these efforts get united 2018 on the first Czech Maker Faire in Prague. It was absolutely amazing event because no one expected there were going to be 10,000 people right from the beginning. It's kind of shaped the culture there, and this shows that becomes a crucial moment for us in this timeline. That the people, from our perspective, actually not creating because of the lack, as I told you before. They start to create because they want to express themselves, to explore, to experiment, to collaborate. Yeah. We see that this is a beautiful approach, and it needs to be shared to all other cities. So we spread the Maker Faire around almost 12 regional cities today, and working with the people there, trying to see what's different in the regions and give the space to people who want to make stuff. But what happens? It's Maker Faire. It's pop-up event. It's there and it's out. And many people ask us that they want to go somewhere else to be in touch with the machines, meet other people, get new lessons, learn stuff. And obvious answer is okay. So let's do some place, some workshop, some makerspace, some Fab Lab. And this is actually something what pushes us to the last part I would like to present, to the era of Fab and Maker advocacy and lobbying. Altogether, we create a huge community in Czech Republic. And we spend hours and hours and loads of energy with talks with politicians, foundations, companies, universities, equipped by interesting stories of makers and numbers. We try to build up the new scene. We try to smuggle these topics into the local development strategies for their funding schemes, and to be able to establish it and to be able to recognize. And we take this great opportunity of FAB25 candidacy to set up the list for us. It was a list of goals we want to achieve, And of course, to make this event here was one of the points. And I'm so glad that it's actually happening. Recent years, we managed to fulfill almost all these points. And I would like to give you a few what we've done. We refounded the Association of Open Workshops. For those who knows that associations are operating in your countries, you're aware that this is really important. We also launched the first professional conference for makerspaces in Fab Labs to be able to meet with the politicians and stakeholders and share. We succeed in a couple of European fundings to foster the cross-borders collaboration and some research. And there is also absolutely amazing course made by visiting scientists in CBA and MIT in Technical University, which is really popular right now. And there are also new department of our company Make More called Make Designers, who are focusing on founding new Fab Labs and helping to find a way how to found a new Fab Labs and makerspaces in the country here. And of course, recently you could observe a new ambitious approaches, new concepts of new level Fab Labs that we are proud of. In Pardubice, there is a Sfera. It's kind of huge, high-capacity center for non-formal education based on Fab Lab principles. Here, there is the tendency to combine and to connect Fab Lab Brno and Vida Center to some new concepts, open more to the public, and build up Fab House out of it. In Prusa Lab is turned to be hardware accelerator, helping the new creative minds, startups, and individuals to set up their businesses and spread. And also, there are many interesting projects. It's going to be huge of them. It's secret now, but you will get a sneak peek soon, following days. Well, you see, we've done a lot, but this is just kickstart of the vehicle. And we're going to have to drive it. It's going to be really interesting way, I'm sure. And I'm so glad that we are having you here, because this event is part of whole puzzle. And I see here familiar faces. And I would like to wish you enjoy this beautiful gathering. And let's celebrate it with us, because we are still on the way, and this relationship we established together is really crucial for us. Thank you. Let's celebrate.
Andrej Kaspar, ladies and gentlemen. He's truly great. He's such a driving force of Czech maker movement. So I suggest you find him during some networking session, and let's ask him about this top secret new project. Okay, now from local to global. Let's hear what's going on in a global maker network and what has happened in the past year, addressing an important call to the community. Let's welcome Neil and Sherry back on stage.
So, rather than a funny story, I'd like to start by depressing you. Everywhere we look, there are serious challenges: climate, wars, economy, politics. It's pretty rational to be depressed about just about everything. But then I'd like to hopefully inspire you because of what this room represents. More quietly, away from sensational coverage, there's grounds for optimism in really addressing all of these problems represented in this room. When the United Nations launched the Sustainable Development Goals, we actually ran a Fab Lab in the UN building. And it was a remarkable experience, because the diplomats would come up to us and ask, "Why are you here?" or just get annoyed because we were in their way. because they wanted to talk about solving all the sustainable development goals. But then we would start going through, just about every one of them required means for local problem solving. And in fact, many of the solutions weren't political. They needed the skills and tools of this room, of the Fab Lab network. And so together, rather than another battle, rather than conflict, collectively what we're doing is showing how creation and collaboration can kind of do an end run around fighting over import quotas and tariffs and sectarian conflict. And this community is bridging divides rather than creating them, just organically, naturally, wonderfully. So that's all great. But the challenge now before us today, coming out of this meeting, is how we scale impact. We've gone from 1 to 1,000 Fab Labs, and that's exciting. We're in 150 countries. Roughly, there's 1,000 cities on Earth. We now need to go to 1 million. There's about 1 million cities on Earth. We need to go to 1 billion. There's about 1 billion people on Earth. And so the challenge before us is no longer how to count Fab Labs, but how do we scale the impact of what we're doing? How to count impact, not just lab growth. And so a thread through this meeting I commend to your attention is scaling impact. No longer just, it used to be exciting we could make things, and we pioneered providing access to the means to make things. We now need to pioneer how to scale impact. So one of the things you'll hear about, I'm very excited about, is the Fab 2.0 transition. It used to be you had to go to a Fab Lab to get access to a machine. Now you can go to a Fab Lab and make a machine. And deploying rapid prototyping of rapid prototyping, bringing skills and jobs local. You can make machines like they exist today, but more importantly, you can change the machines and make the machines reflect local needs. And so an important thread through the meeting is rapid machine building, motion systems, machine control, path planning, all of the skills to build machines. Another thing you'll hear about is we backed into the the Fab Academy, which grew into the Academy, which is creating infrastructure for hands-on, globally distributed education. It's not central at a central site. It's not online at a distance. It's students with peers in work groups locally, then connected in global learning hubs. And you'll hear about a number of new programs, one on Fab Futures for 21st Century Vocational Education. Distinct is a globally distributed incubator. A number of new educational programs growing through this infrastructure for this global educational network. Another thing you'll hear about is ranging from cities to indigenous communities, developing means for sustainable local production. And so a lot of examples of producing food, shelter, toys, consumer electronics, but now really starting to curate best practices, studying inputs and outputs and scaling, and really looking at what does it mean to scale sustainable local production. And part of what's so interesting about that is the collaboration ranges from traditional practices in indigenous communities to state-of-the-art knowledge in multinationals, and in a really interesting way, blending the best of both of their skills. So really curating scalable local production. And so stepping back, we collectively pioneered digital fabrication, but that's no longer enough. We need to pioneer impact, and that's really a new frontier. We can't fit 1 million people in one room, but how do we impact the next 1 million people is the challenge before us. And it really represents a profound change. Up until recently, Fab Labs were defined by the laser cutter. Increasingly, it's defined by the culture. We're bringing the means of problem solving wherever they're needed and creating places where that can happen, empowering innovation. And it really is not a pivot, but a growth of who we are and why we are. To recognize that along the way with providing access to the laser cutter, we've created a global network and a global community. Or my favorite way to describe it is, I describe MIT's core competence as being a safe place for strange people. And that's really what we're doing. Everybody wants a knowledge economy and innovation, and bright, innovative people don't behave well. and don't follow rules and have trouble with hierarchical schools and companies. And what we've created is an ecosystem where people like that, like me, can flourish. But instead of packing into a few isolated locations, we can bring all of these resources to bright, inventive people wherever they are on Earth. So we've reached this point. We've created this community. We've created a culture. We still have the laser cutters, but we're growing beyond them. And the challenge I would leave you with is, how do we go from 1,000 to 1,000,000? We have to hold on to everything that brought us to who we are and what we are, but we have to let go of many of the things we've done to reach this next stage in our scaling as we grow. So with that, thank you, and I'll hand off to Sherry.
Dakwi. Thank you. Oh, hello, everyone. This is the time where we get to sort of assess ourselves. We look at the numbers, we go by the numbers, we look at the numbers, and we try to think about where we are in this scaling framework. And I would like to sort of reinforce what Neil said a little bit earlier. You know, these are extremely uncertain times. You know, the political winds of the world have moved toward a more populist point of view and a more populist mindset. And I hope very much that that changes in the years to come. But it may not. It may. It doesn't change what we do. This community is extraordinarily it's unique. And what we do is we try to bring well-being, resilience, economic opportunity to our communities, and we do that using digital fabrication and technology. And so I would say that stay the course, stay the course. Our goal, we act more like the UN, not the US or a single country. You know, we don't really pay attention to boundaries and borders and politics. And so stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep growing the impact that we're talking about today, because it's so important. And through us, we can make wonderful change in the world. Through you, you can make wonderful change in the world. And so just don't let it get to you. So now, by the numbers. First, I'd like to sort of shout out to Peter van der Heijden. I don't know if he's here, Peter, but yeah, there he is, I think. Peter has been working with us for the last few years to help us sort of streamline our process through fablabs.io and how you register, and actually looking at the back end and really assessing, really looking at the data in an interesting and deep way. And so some of these numbers come from our back end and some come from Peter, but we're about 3,000 labs now, not quite. Only 2,500 of those are actually verified as active, but that's still a lot of labs. It's more than 1,000 and less than 1,000,000. We've got 472 organizations like the Fab Foundation or like Make More. We have 81,000 users, 164 countries that we know of. There may be more. And we employ, as a community, more than 5,000 people. And we're growing. But interestingly, we're not growing exponentially anymore. We are now growing linearly since about 2022. And I think that really does reflect the fact that digital fabrication is it's becoming much more ubiquitous, much more typical and common. And as Neil said, it doesn't really make sense for us to count labs so much as the impact that we make as a community. And so those are our numbers. This is interesting. So, you know, in this taxonomy of, 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, et cetera, Peter and a team from the working group, the UN Fab Labs and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, put together this interesting map that shows where we meet that certain criteria. So right now, the criteria that we're trying to meet is 1 lab per 1,000,000 people. or one lab per 10,000 square kilometers. And so the red areas that you see, or the dark pink areas, those are areas that where they don't have any Fab Labs. So we're missing a community there. The sort of more orange-colored, means that they might have some, but they don't quite meet all of the criteria, right? And the green ones, the yellow ones, so you can see, it's very kind of interesting. We might meet one or two criteria, but we don't really meet all of the criteria for how many Fab Labs we expect in the world at this scale. And so you can see the United States, many parts of South America, big swaths of Russia and China and Africa are in that situation at that scale. And then, of course, the green is very interesting. Europe, primarily Europe. The green is, these are the places that, the countries and places that actually do meet that criteria. So there is one lab per 1 million people, and or one lab per 10,000 square kilometers in Europe, but not much of the rest of the world. So I think we have a lot of catching up to do. And so, as we've always said, it's not really about the machines, it's about what we do together, it's about our impact. And so I'm just going to call out a couple of really nice projects that we've seen do a lot of work this year. I wish I had known about the Fab Lab Brno mobile labs, because it sounds like you guys are doing extraordinary work. We have to talk. So the Fab City Global Initiative, they've been very busy. I think they've got more than 50 cities now, 50 cities and regions signed up to really be global, so globally connected but locally productive, really trying to create cities through public-private partnerships that are more sustainable and that meet the needs of their community without, further polluting or destroying our resources in our world. The distributed design platform, that's out of the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, IAC, or the Fab Lab Barcelona. And this is a wonderful exchange platform for artists and designers and makers, so that they can connect to local digital markets and local markets. And so it's a beautiful project this year that's had a lot of activity. And here are a few more. This one I'm really excited about, Fab Global Kids. This week, I'm sure you all have seen that we have a kids track. And so our young people are going to have this beautiful opportunity to have experience cultural exchange through the lens of education and technology. And this is a program not just happening here. I mean, this is a global program that's led by a wonderful group of people, Ilaria Lamana, who isn't here this week, I'm sorry to say, Rico Kathantham, I think Rico's here, but I haven't seen him yet, Martin Ulu here from Kenya, and a whole group of just wonderful, wonderful people that lead this project and bring kids together for education, technical education, but also for cultural exchange. And then this is a new one for me that's really interesting, coming out of India. Makers Asylum has a UN SDG school. And it is for college credit, and it's in partnership with UNESCO. And what they're trying to do is pull youth into action around sustainability and around the Sustainable Development Goals. So get them started thinking very early and very young about how they can make change in the world. And so those are just 4 programs. I know there are a million wonderful programs, but these are 4 that have come to our attention this year that we think are doing especially well. And then related to that, the Fab Labs and UN Sustainable Development Goal Project, it's a working group really. They have now about 22% of the network is aligning, these labs are aligning their projects and their labs around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. As Neil was saying, it's not about, it's about how we scale impact. And when we first showed up on the scene of the UN SDGs, they ignored us, and they were like, because they're really used to kind of a top-down approach to to making this kind of large-scale change. And what we're trying to do is take it from the bottom up and say, no, from a grassroots perspective, from a distributed perspective, we can make change, we can make really solid change that that will have tremendous impact in the world. And that's, Peters coordinates that, but there's a wonderful international team that is in that working group and works together on this project. This is for our Academy. We're trying to grow it to be more relevant and more interesting and more productive, I guess you would say. And Fab Future, we're growing new courses. The Fab Learning Academy now is in its second year, I think, or maybe it's about to have its third year. This is for educators who want to use digital fabrication in the classroom globally. A beautiful program that's growing. And then Fab Futures is the one we're about to pilot. You'll hear a lot more about that probably tomorrow. But this is the 21st century vocational skills. So it's aimed at really driving a new workforce, a new way of learning, and new opportunities. And then the Masters in Distributed Innovation, Masters in Design and Distributed Innovation that comes out of the Fab City project. Next year we'll form sort of a new platform and a new partnership with Fab Lab Plymouth, at the Arts University of Plymouth. And so the Fab Academy is growing, or the Academy is growing. And FabX events. So when you talk about, right now we're in Czechia, and these little yellow pins are all the different places. This is our 21st edition, I think. Wow, that's a lot. But you can see there are large swaths of the world that haven't had this, haven't hosted this, haven't experienced this particular conference and this wonderful celebration. And so I think part of our work is to reimagine this conference over the coming years. I think Oulu is 2 years from now. Oulu will actually try to pilot some new directions and some new ways of doing FabX, the FabX event. And of course, next year, we invite you all to Boston. So we want you to come, we want you to celebrate with us, come back to where it all began, and celebrate with us, and learn with us, and discover. At any rate, thank you very much, Depuis. And with that, I'll hand it off.
Thank you, Sherry. Sherry Lester, ladies and gentlemen, and Neil before her, and their important insight into state of global network. And up next is our very first keynote. And let me just tell you one of my absolute favorite things about Fab Lab world, Maker world, is the stories. And I'm sure you'll hear many of them, not only from this main stage, but also during networking events and parties, because sharing is one of the core values of every FabX event. And that's exactly why we are kicking things off with a keynote about storytelling, followed by a live Q&A session. So if you'd like to ask our speaker any question you want, just open the official app. It's called Avanti. You can download it to your smartphone. Just scan this QR code. You can also find the QR code on your attendee badges if you need it. Then you have to hit the schedule, find this particular session. It's called Storytelling for Makers, and then hit Ask the Question button. You don't have to wait till the end of the keynote. You can ask your questions during all the keynote speech, and then you can also rate someone else's question. So feel free to ask our speaker anything you are curious about. So now, to tell us why the journey is everything, sharing it is a superpower, comes the man behind the famous YouTube channels Strange Parts and Electric Wrench, the true maker, adventurer, and storyteller. Please welcome Scotty Allen.
Thank you. Hello, FAB25. It's really an honor to be here and be here with all of you. Can we have the speaker notes up on here? Thanks. So I'm Scotty, and I'm an engineer and a maker, but I make my living telling stories. I want to convince you to start telling stories, or if you're already telling stories, I want to give you ideas on how you can use what you already know about engineering and making to tell better stories. As I was introduced, I run the YouTube channel Strange Parts, as well as the new YouTube channel Electric Ranch. Strange Parts is about understanding how and where technology is made as a path to subverting it and making it our own. I like to think of it as adventure meets travel meets technology. A lot of the stories that I tell are about manufacturing and ambitious electronics projects. And I have about 2 million subscribers on the main channel and about 165 million views across the stories that I've told. I've done everything from build my own iPhone from parts that I bought in the markets of China. I added the headphone jack back to the iPhone when Apple removed it. Thank you. And I've gotten to visit countless factories to see how things are made and show all of you and the rest of the world. I've been to tons of industrial markets, including the largest wholesale market in the world. This is Yiwu here, all to make videos. But I haven't always made videos or been in front of an audience. Previously, I was a software engineer. And believe it or not, I started my career as a full-time YouTube creator by accident. About 8 years ago, maybe going on 9 now, I went to China with the goal of starting an electronics company. It was back when the Internet of Things was just coming onto the scene, and I thought, you know, this is a perfect merge of my software engineering skills and my love for electronics ever since I was a little kid. So I went to Shenzhen and I dove into the markets. Shenzhen is currently the electronics manufacturing hub of the world, and I was so amazed by what I saw, on day one, that I wanted to share it with my maker and hacker friends back home, so I started making little videos of the amazing things that I was seeing. And I realized that there were these amazing stories all around me that just weren't being told. And I figured that maybe if I started telling some of these stories, maybe I could build a small audience that I could sell whatever electronics I manufactured to. And then I stumbled across a great idea. Someone was visiting Shenzhen from out of town and said, I was walking through the cell phone markets today, the cell phone repair markets, and the cell phone repair markets are positioned such that where we used to hang out and drink beer and eat Chinese barbecue, between there and the main electronics markets were the cell phone repair markets that sold tools and repair parts and things like that. But they were really opaque, and we didn't know much about how that worked. And I thought, that's a really great idea, and it's an excuse to figure out really what's going on in those markets, because none of us understand it. So she went back home, and I didn't hear anything more about it. And 9 months later, I was sitting at that same barbecue place, talking to a reporter from Popular Mechanics, and I said, there's this idea that I just can't get out of my head. What if I could build my own phone from parts in those markets? Would that be interesting to your audience? And he said, yes, absolutely. Let me know if you do it. So I decided to give it a try. And 5 months later, I spent 5 months full-time working on this. A couple months shooting and a couple months figuring out how to edit this into a story. I had successfully built an iPhone from individual parts in the markets, and I'd edited together this 23.5-minute video. And I put it online, and that became the very first video that I published on Strange Parts, and it's gone on to get over 25 million views since then. I had accidentally become a full-time YouTube creator, and I've been doing it ever since. So why tell stories? We love hearing stories. We love telling stories. Stories are actually vital to our evolution and our existence as humans. A story links together this happened, so that happened in a chain in a way that our brains can hold on to better than just here's a jumble of facts. By hearing a story of, say, a lion hunt or watching a video of somebody build a robot, we can picture the steps without facing that danger directly or having to do all that hard work ourselves. They also pull us closer together, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's larger communities like this. We feel closer together when we share the same protagonists and the same lessons. And lastly, stories store knowledge for us as a society. So one generation learns how to plant corn or sail a sailboat or code a game. And the next generation gets to benefit from that and start from that place rather than starting from zero again. So stories make memory stronger, they make practice safer, they make teamwork easier, and they make progress of society as a whole faster. Stories also inspire people. I've had many young people come up to me and say, I got inspired to start making things or to start studying engineering because I watched your videos. A young man came up to me at Open Source last year and asked me to sign his diploma because watching my videos is what got him to study computer science. And I'll tell you, thank you. I'll tell you, this is one of the more nerve-wracking things I've ever done. It's definitely the most expensive thing I've ever signed. I really didn't want to screw this up. Telling stories also just opens doors that are really cool. I've gotten to go to some really cool places. Here I'm inside a giant fiber laser that cuts inch-thick metal somewhere in China. I've gotten to meet really cool people. This is my cameraman, Jun Shu, and this is one of the representatives at JLC PCB. We're suiting up to go inside one of their clean rooms to see how circuit boards are made. I've even gotten free healthcare in return for telling my journey recovering from a really bad concussion. It's opened amazing doors for me. But also telling stories is a way to scale your own impact. So I know Dave Hawkins is here or will be here, founder of Precious Plastic, and he started making videos telling his journey of designing and sharing with the world open source plastic recycling machines. And that led to other makers copying them, improving them, sharing parts kits. And today, over 1,000 precious plastic workshops exist in over 100 countries. Now, he could have just started his own little plastic recycling workshop in his town or city. But instead, by sharing his story, he turned it into a global recycling network. The last reason, and I don't have a slide for this for a reason, because it's pretty personal. The last benefit I've really gotten from telling stories is that it's made me a lot more comfortable with who I am. So when I was in middle school and high school, I was bullied a lot. That might resonate with some people in the room. And when I started telling stories and when I started Strange Parts, all of a sudden the things that I was bullied for became the things that I was celebrated for and recognized for. And I spent a lot of time watching myself on camera as I was editing videos, and it helped me integrate that part back into myself and start feeling more comfortable in my own skin. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest benefits I've gotten from telling stories and making videos. So, I can already hear you saying in your head, but Scotty, I can't tell stories. A lot of people think that you have to be born with some innate talent, some special creativity gene that makes you capable of doing this. I mean, aren't journalists and filmmakers and writers some other species that's not us? Now, usually the objection takes a different form, right? Usually people say, but I can't write. But I can't make videos. But I can't stand on stage and talk publicly. So I want to ask you, show of hands, who here, if you dig deep down into your heart, one of those statements at least resonates a little bit with you? Me too. But I'm here to convince you that you're wrong. You can tell stories. And I've got a bunch of reasons why. So first, you know more about something that's interesting than quote-unquote professional storytellers, journalists, writers, even me. But also, we live in an amazing time. We live in a time where anybody can tell a story now and get access to a global audience via the internet. You don't need to work for a news outlet. You don't need to work for a newspaper. You don't need to be a reporter for a TV station. We also have amazing access to tools, right? I don't need to convince you of that. You already own the tools that you need to make videos. And lastly, I think this is a room filled with makers and engineers, if I'm not wrong. And storytelling is based on patterns the same way that making and engineering is. And I'm going to try and share with you some of those patterns that I've learned. And the biggest thing I want you to take away is that there are patterns. You don't have to invent this stuff from scratch. Stories can be told in a bunch of different mediums, right? You can write stories. You can get up on stage and tell stories in person. You can make videos. So why did I choose video? I'd be lying if I said that I had some prescient idea that this was a great way to do things 8 years ago when I started Strange Parts. I didn't. I stumbled into this. But I think that video is the best opportunity to reach people right now and build an audience. And I think a lot of the reason is because of YouTube. So these stats are a little bit old, but just to give you a sense of scale of YouTube, 2.6 billion monthly active users. So those are users that visit YouTube at least once a month. There's 1 billion hours of video watched every day, which gives you access to this incredible audience, right? And anybody can access this by uploading something. But there's 500 hours of video uploaded every minute of every day to YouTube. So you need to tell good stories and you need to make good videos in order to stand out. And I want to teach you as much of what I know and what I've learned over the past 8 years as I have time for right now. There are some downsides to video, and I don't want to ignore those. The first is you need to learn new skills. There's no way around that. And the second one is that it's really hard work. But it's totally worth it, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So I want to teach you how to make videos, what I've learned over the past 8 years, using those engineering and making skills that you already have. I want to first start by talking about ideas. I used to think that this is how it should work, right? I come up with a project, and then I need to figure out how to tell the world, right? And I hear this in so many different contexts, right? I made a thing, right? In entrepreneurship circles, how do I get more customers, right? I built a company, now I'm going to start marketing, and I need to find more customers. How do I do that? In YouTube circles, I made a video, or I made a series of videos, I've got a channel, how do I get more views? This is not the right way to look at it. I no longer think like this. This is wrong, right? It's wrong in video, it's wrong in entrepreneurship. I think it's wrong in projects, right? I think this is the right way to think about it. Start with, what story can I tell that will get lots of interest, right? Before you build anything. And I know this is going to be controversial. I think this goes for making videos, but I think it goes for starting businesses. I think it goes for starting projects. I think it goes for just about anything. I'm going to make a bold claim. I don't think you should ever build something that's not in service of a great story. And I know that's going to be controversial. I think the story has to come first, and whatever you're building has to come second. Build stuff that's worth sharing. It's a great metric for figuring out what you should be spending your time on. So, if you buy that, what story should you tell, right? And I have a couple of questions that I ask myself when I think about what stories I want to tell and what I want to spend my time on. The first is, what can you tell better than anyone else, right? I said earlier, I think there's something that is interesting that you can tell better than anybody else on the planet, right? What are you well positioned for? What do you know the best? Second, what are you really excited about? This is a lot of work, remember? So you want to focus on things that really get you fired up, that are going to carry you through the lows of that project, of that storytelling, of that video editing. And then lastly, and I think this is the most important one, what's going to resonate with other people like you? I try and ask myself, what videos can I make? What stories can I tell? What projects can I work on that my most hardcore hacker and maker friends are going to think is really exciting, but that I still can explain to my next door neighbor who's in construction and likes technology but doesn't know a lot about it? This is the question that I struggle with the most, because I get excited about all sorts of weird niche things that only a very small number of people are interested in, right? So you want to think about what's going to resonate with a larger circle than just the 10 people that are into this. So we've got our idea. How do we tell a story? And like I said before, you don't need any magical creativity to tell stories. Stories follow patterns. Now, as engineers and makers, we're used to patterns, and you may not think about it this way, but we have software patterns, right? This is the observer pattern or the listener pattern. If you've studied computer science, you definitely know about patterns. But if you've ever done any programming on a web UI, you're very familiar with, hey, I want to register a listener on a button or on an input field, and I want to get notified. Patterns give us a way to apply best practices to our software. This one is really great at decoupling things. It makes our software better. It makes our software cleaner. It makes our projects easier to maintain. But we also have patterns in hardware, right? Circuit boards are a pattern. They're a technology that allows us to draw wires in a way that's easy to read, that's neat, that's replicable, that's mass manufacturable, right? And it's a skill you can learn, and it's a pattern you can replicate. So, take that idea of patterns, let's apply it to storytelling. The most well-known storytelling pattern is the hero's journey. How many people have heard of the hero's journey? Okay, a really good number, awesome. Many, many, many stories are based on the hero's journey. It's been used for thousands of years, right? Everything from the Bible to popular movies. So I want to tell you a version of a story to remind you and explain to you what the key plot points are in the most high-level hero's journey story. But a lot of these hero's journey stories, they kind of all get they all are kind of the same story because they're based on the same pattern, so they get a little jumbled up in my head. So forgive me if I get some of the details wrong here. So, starting out, there are bright lasers exploding in space against the blackness. There's an immense destroyer in pursuit, and there's a masked figure dressed in black, and he boards a smaller vessel. This is the hook. Right? So the hook draws the viewer in. It makes them more intrigued to keep watching. Then we cut to a boy, and he lives with his aunt and uncle. And this is the ordinary world. This is the place that our protagonist, the hero, lives in before the story starts. Right? It's boring. It's ordinary. And then a wise, bearded man comes up to him and says, "You're a wizard, Luke," and reveals that his father was also a wizard and was the best starship pilot he'd ever seen. So he invites him to come along with him to a faraway castle via a magic starship that's leaving from platform 9 3/4. This is the call to adventure. He's asking the hero to leave the ordinary world and fulfill his destiny. But the boy refuses and says, I got to stay here with my aunt and uncle. And this is the refusal of the call. So usually it's a mundane excuse. He says, I got school tomorrow. I got to go take care of the family farm. But then the boy finds out that there's this evil dark lord, Lord Voldemort, who's killed his aunt and uncle. So he accepts the invitation and goes with the man. And the man takes him to this castle via a magic starship. So this is entering the adventure world, which is magical and totally different from the ordinary world. There, Luke learns how to use a magic wand, and he trains to be a wizard, and he has many adventures throughout the galaxy. So those adventures, those early adventures, are the tests and trials, where he is gradually learning new things. He's being tested with his knowledge. He makes new friends like Han Solo and Hermione. He also meets enemies, right? But then he and his friends fly to the planet Alderaan, where they are confronted by a giant CGI dog who drags them in with its tractor beam. And Luke and his friends use their skills to successfully free themselves from the tractor beam and rescue the trapped princess. So this is the ordeal. This is the big challenge that the hero has to face without his mentor, right? So the man's no longer in the picture. He's on his own with his friends and allies, and he has to use those new skills that he's acquired. So through these adventures, Luke has distinguished himself as the top Quidditch player and a growing wizard. And finally, in the Battle of the Death Star, he makes that direct hit that secures the Gryffindor victory against the forces of the Galactic Empire. And in that process, he also neutralizes the threat of Lord Voldemort, who murdered his aunt and uncle. So this is the climax, right? This is that big final battle, final boss. It resolves the whole story arc. And then finally, Luke and his friends Han Solo and Ron and Chewbacca return to the Rebel base, and they're awarded the House Cup by Princess Leia. And Luke is now a wizard, and he's forever changed. This wraps up our story and is the return to the ordinary world, and it demonstrates the change in our hero, right? One key piece to this hero's journey is that our hero is forever changed. He's a different person. So, I want to take this template, and I want to rename it and tell it to you again. We're going to call it the maker's journey instead of the hero's journey. I think that any sufficiently complex maker project, engineering project, maps onto the hero's journey really well. So I'm going to use that very first video that I made trying to put together my own iPhone to demonstrate this. It's the video that people are most likely to have seen of mine, and it's one that I know the best.
I am trying to make my own iPhone. Very good.
So, this is the hook, right? I am drawing you in. I'm telling you right at the start, this is the video opens on this. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, right? I was in a dimly lit barbecue joint here in China, and someone said, you know, see all these cell phone parts in the markets? I wonder if you could build your own phone. So that's the call to adventure. Can you build your own phone? Is that possible? Can I do that? I kept coming and going from China over the past 9 months, and I couldn't get rid of this burning question. Could I make my own cell phone? Would people even sell parts to a Western guy like me who hardly speaks any Chinese? Are they going to listen to me? Am I welcome here? Do I really want to do this? You know, this is 9 months later. So this is the refusal of the call, right? I'm not jumping in yet. But then I did what any geek would do, and I dove in with both feet. 9 months later, I decided to accept the call. Coming to Shenzhen is like visiting the future, but it's this crazy, dystopian, Blade Runner-esque future. So in this story, Shenzhen is the adventure world, right? And I stand firmly behind the belief that Shenzhen is a magical place, right? I've seen things there that I wouldn't have dreamed of existed.
So to make a phone, I think I need 4 pieces. I need the metal back, the shell the phone sits in. I need a screen. I need a battery. And then I need the logic board, which is the circuit board that has the processor and the memory and things like that on it. So we're in a back alley behind the cell phone markets. I'm going to take a look at what's available here. Sometimes there are phone backs that are available for sale.
So this is the start of my tests and trials, right? I got to come up with 4 things. I got to come up with the screen, the case, the battery, and the logic board, right? And I got to navigate this adventure world that I don't really fully understand. I don't speak Chinese. I've got all these hurdles.
I'm outside McDonald's and I'm waiting for Frank. So Frank's a buyer, buys a bunch of different Apple parts in markets. He's going to help me buy the parts for to build a screen. So I'm starting to meet my allies. Specifically in this case, it's people who speak Chinese and English, who understand the markets and can help me navigate a little bit. But I'm also meeting enemies. She doesn't just have a phone that we can put this in to test with a display and battery.
没有测，没得测，拿回去测。
Yeah, she doesn't have the time to do the testing.
Well, can we do the testing with her phone?
Yeah, she said like no.
Yeah. She does not want to deal with me. I encountered this somewhat in the markets in this process, and since then, of people who just say, you don't know what you're doing, get out of here.
It turns out this logic board isn't perfect. Let me show you what I mean. If I go over here to the Compass app, and I turn it around, nothing happens. I'm gonna try and take it back and see if she'll give me a new one.
That was pretty amazing. I took the bad logic board back to the woman I bought it from, showed her on my testing setup that the compass didn't work. She said, okay, come back at 5. I asked her for a refund, and we paid me the money via her phone, and then said, still come back at 5, and I'll give you a new one. So this is my first big ordeal, right? This is where I now have to navigate this really kind of opaque market by myself. I don't have any allies, and I've got this big problem that I have to deal with. So today's the day I've been waiting for a long time. Today is the day I get to try and put together the phone. I think I have everything I need. I'm not sure, so let's give it a shot.
Boy, those buttons look crappy. Not clicky.
I might have to go back to the markets and put my mercy on one of the booth vendors and see if they can show me what I'm missing.
I bought the cable from you yesterday, and if you feel like does not feel right.
Hey, that is sweet. That is my finished phone.
So this is the climax, right? Final build. So you probably are all familiar with being at that stage in the project where you're like you're putting things together for the final time, and then you hit a snag. That's the climax of your project story usually. And then finally, we return to the ordinary
And it turns out, even a newbie like me can figure out how to put together a phone. It's totally doable if you have access to parts, some basic tools, and some good advice or instructions on how to do it.
So for me, the change that I saw was now I understand how this works. Now that I know this is possible, I understand how the markets work. I no longer think of phones as this like magical black box. So, in the maker's journey, you get to be the hero. And you get to choose your own adventure. So choose a good one. Whoops. Choose a good one. You get to choose the challenges that you face in your journey, both through the project that you choose, but also choosing how you're going to go about that project. I actually, in that trying to build a cell phone, I thought at one point that I was going to try soldering my own logic board, which turned out to be way too hard of a challenge, and I ended up backing away from that one. But the hero's journey really gives you a set of plot points and themes that you can kind of use as a grab bag to start to think about how am I going to plan out the adventures that I'm going to go on. Whether it's a physical adventure traveling, or whether it's a technological adventure diving into trying to make something or understand something. I really like this book, The Ultimate Hero's Journey. It's 195 plot points. Not all of them, you don't have to use all of them. There's about 8 or 10 that are kind of mandatory. And then this is a bunch of like grab bag things that you can choose between that kind of inspire you to figure out how you're going to sculpt your story.
But this is just one pattern. There's also the 3-act structure, so setup, conflict, resolution. I'm going to modify this for YouTube and say that there's actually 4 pieces to it. So there's the hook, right? The hook is that first 5 to 30 seconds of the video that draws the viewer in, right? We have a lot of videos competing for attention on the internet, right? It's very easy to click off. So pay off that click. When they click on your video, you want to deliver on why they clicked on it right in those first few seconds. Then introduction. What are you doing and why, right? This is a more complete explanation of what's happening. We're setting up the stakes for whatever that is. Then we jump into the story. That's really the meat. For a build video like this, it's the actual building of the project. And I think one of the things that a lot of people miss here is that they don't focus on the emotional story beats and problems. They just tell what they did in the past. And I think it's really key to focus on the actual journey and not just the end result. And then finally, we get to the conclusion, which is where we kind of wrap everything up. What are my lessons learned? And then if you want people to do something, what's my call to action? What do I want people to do after having watched this? This is a new pattern to me that is more suited to when you're asking someone for something. So what is the problem I'm solving? Then what is my solution to the problem? And then what is the impact of having solved it? It's good for asking for funding for something. It's also good for, hey, buy my product, sign up to my course, whatever it is. I'm still working on finding more patterns. And the key thing I want you to take away is there are patterns. But I think there are more out there for me to discover. So we've talked about the existence of patterns. How do you start to break down a story? How do you start to break down a project as you're thinking about it? I like to create outlines like this. And I start to think through, okay, how am I going to set this up? Like, what's going to be the hook? Maybe I know what the hook is. Maybe we find the hook later. Sometimes we find the hook in the edit. Sometimes it's just like, the success moment of a quick glimpse into the end, right? We invert the story model. Or sometimes it's a key emotional moment. Usually it's a negative one of oh my God, everything broke, right? I'm promising that you're going to see good conflict and a good story, right? So I start to think through how do I think this project is going to go, right? I usually don't start on a project that I'm doing on video until I really have at least a theoretical idea in my head of how I'm going to do it and how I might be successful with it. So I start to map that out. And then I start to think about, okay, what of those pieces are going to look good on camera? What are going to be boring on camera? So I make sure I get those. And then I also start to think through what are my risk points, right? What might go wrong? What might cause me to spend a lot more time? Those kinds of things. What are the problems that I'm going to hit? Now, problems are actually good, right? And I know this sounds counterintuitive because being an engineer and a maker, whenever you hit that barrier, you're like, oh God, I just want this to go smoothly. But when you're telling a story, problems make for a better story. If it goes totally smoothly, boring story, right? Interesting stories have hurdles and conflict and tests and trials, and those are problems when you're in your project. They give contrast to those moments of success. If you just show the success, it lands flat, it's hollow. You have to show the struggle beforehand. In maker projects and engineering, often but not always, the conflict is between you and the project. It's not between you and other people, which is a little bit different than what the hero's journey often is. Here's an example of a low point that worked particularly well for me.
That's where I'm at. It fits together, but the screens are breaking. We've broken 2 screens in the past 24 hours, and they're just being too smashed, I think. headphone jack.
Turn your camera on when you least want to. I really, really did not want to film that at the time. I didn't want to be on camera. I wanted nothing to do with it. But it was super valuable to the story.
I don't know, guys. I really want to give up at this point. It just feels like now it's a matter of not screwing up, not breaking something, which isn't very much fun. It's also getting really expensive. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars in broken parts. Like, just this week alone, ignoring the rest of my costs. I knew this project was going to be hard. I had no idea of how hard it was going to be. I've heard from so many of you via emails, and Facebook messages, and a lot of you said how inspired you were by what I did. And I wanted this story to be another story of inspiration, of success. And right now it's not. Fuck. I really want to show you guys like a finished phone. I really want to be able to say, here it is, it works. Yeah, I can't stop here. I'm gonna go give it one more shot and be really careful this time. I feel like I'm gradually learning how to not break stuff. It gets a little bit better each time, but wish me luck.
Finally got it working. I finally put it together without breaking anything. Check this out. Okay, here's the speaker. And here is the headphones. How awesome is that?
So, without those lows, that high wouldn't feel that strong. If you don't show your failures, I think you're just making success porn, right? And I think it's really detrimental to our communities to be making success porn. And what I mean by success porn is, hey, I built this really cool thing. Here's everything that went right, and I'm not going to tell you anything that went wrong, right? And I'm going to tell you retroactively. I made this thing, it works, it's perfect, and here's what I did that ultimately led to that, but it's told through the rosiest of glasses, right? I also just don't think it's very interesting. It's missing all of those emotional beats. It's missing all of those things that make for an interesting maker's journey or hero's journey, right? But it also discourages new people in our communities. It discourages people who are not as experienced as we are because it makes them think that they're the only ones that are having problems. They think that you do it perfectly every time, and they struggle, and therefore they suck, and therefore they should stop. It's also okay to reshoot stuff. So ideally, get it the first time. Roll the camera when you think there might be something that's relevant, when you think there might be a success, when you think there might be a failure. And sometimes that's a lot of footage. But if you miss something, which happens, it's okay to reshoot it. Multiple times even. That moment in the alley, that was recorded weeks or months after I finished that project. And the reason I went back and recorded it, so it's all true. What I said, every bit of it's true, right? And I'm hesitant to even share this publicly. This is the first time I've said this publicly. The reason I did that is because I didn't have it on camera in a way that fit the story, right? Everything I said is true, but I recreated it for the camera to make the story work. Switching gears a little bit. I can hear your next objection, which is, but I don't want to show my face on camera, right? I don't like the way that I look. I don't like the way that I sound. It feels awkward. And I'm sure there are a number of you that are probably thinking this right now. But it's really, really worth it. We connect with humans. We connect with emotion. We connect with faces. Our brains are wired for it. I want to show you some of the very first footage I recorded for that very first iPhone video.
Okay, so I'm here in Shenzhen. I've been living here on and off for so today I'm really excited to tell you about a new project I'm working on. I've been living in Shenzhen, but first, so today.
Okay, so that's really painful for me to watch still. It's gotten a little bit easier with time. But I got some great advice that made me start thinking about it differently. After I did the headphone jack thing, I was invited on the old TV show Screensavers. And I talked to the Padre on that show. And I did the interview and whatever, and then at the end, he needed to do a sponsor read. And he just like nailed it the first time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that, right? Every time I need to say something, I say it like 4 or 5 times on camera, and I stumble all over myself. And he said, it gets a lot easier after the first few 100 hours. And he was right. Having done this for 8 years, like now I can nail things on the first time sometimes. And it's a learned skill like anything else. Yeah, it's super awkward the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time. But it does get easier. The other thing that I learned is that you're not talking to the audience right away when you record to a camera. Sure, you should be thinking that in your head, but you don't have to show that footage to anybody until you're ready, until you like it, right? So it's still a private conversation that you're having essentially with yourself. I mean, it's with the audience, but you can do it again if you don't like it. You don't have to show that bad take to anybody. And you can keep reshooting until you get it right.
I set out to make my own iPhone a couple of years ago. I set out to make my own iPhone a couple of years ago, and it took me down this crazy rabbit hole into the Chinese cell phone markets. And ever since, I set out to make my own iPhone a couple of years ago, and it took me down this crazy rabbit hole into the Chinese cell phone markets. And ever since, people have been asking me, okay, when are you going to build your own Android? But I kept saying I didn't want to make the same video again with cars behind me, because this is driving me nuts. I set out, give up.
So this is probably the worst of my multiple takes. I think I did 45 takes of this until I got one that I was happy with. But, I'm happy with the one that's in the video, and nobody gets to see these except at a talk like this. Another common question I get is, how long should a video be? And I think that's often the wrong question to ask, because my answer is as long as it needs to be and not a little bit longer, not a second longer. If I was forced to answer that question, my answer would be like 8 to 30 minutes for YouTube, shorter for other platforms. But again, I don't think it's the right question. I think pacing is the right question. So on YouTube and on online platforms, we're struggling to keep people's attention. You need to keep that pacing tight. It needs to move, right? There's plenty of other things for them to click off on and get distracted by. But there's an exception to that. You need to slow down for those emotional moments, right? Those emotional beats of either lows or highs, slow down for those. Give those space. In the first 30 seconds of the video, you're trying to grab their attention, right? So keep it snappy, keep it tight. You should be cutting probably every 2 to 3 seconds at most. Don't do intro animations. Everybody gets all excited to like create these fancy animations with their brand and their logo and whatever. It just loses people's attention. Don't do it. I know it's fun to make them, but don't do it. When I think about pacing, I think about cutting out anything that's not required to make the story work and just being brutal about it. So Biggest thing is like trim down your dialogue. Nobody wants to hear you ramble. Keep it as tight as you possibly can. It's one of the times that we reshoot stuff, because I like to talk a lot and I will ramble, and sometimes we'll get into edit and we'll just say, this is too freaking long and we can't figure out how to cut it down, so let's reshoot it after the fact. I'm going to show you a rough edit of a scene of some friends of mine. We're starting to build a battle bot for the TV show. And then after we watch this, I want to show you the final edit and show you how much we cut out. So when we're watching this first version, I want you to, while you're watching, I want you to pay attention to your attention and your emotions. I want you to feel yourself getting bored while we watch this.
All right, so we got our parts from Sencut Send. We got aluminum parts the other day, so that'll be good for wheels and molding. This should be the frame parts. Ooh, that's the base belly pan.
Okay. We got our parts in from our sponsor, Sencut Send. We've got 2 different materials. We've got parts cut in aluminum. We've got parts cut in steel. They were all laser cut. When we designed all of these, they're all based on a flat pattern that just gets cut out in a profile out of a big sheet. We bring them in here, we unwrap them all. A lot of them have notches and tabs that all interlock with each other. And once we tab them all together, we weld them up, and everything is just a really good fit right out of the packaging. This is our front and back wedge.
All right,
we'll be
I'm starting to get bored.
Taper
Do you
on the
feel
front
that?
and back.
Feel like,
help get
keeps
underneath
going.
our opponents and also just protect the front from hits. These parts here are going to get stacked up and form the hubs of our wheels.
So I think one of the things about this, right, like there's not much burr on either side. There's not much draft angle on the edges. It's going to make it real easy.
Right, it's
especially
just
when
starting
you
to
start
drag.
talking about, like, if you look at these little edge tabs that are going to tab together, like that being so
Kinda
square
repeating.
in the corner, it's going to allow for laying a weld bead really nice down in there.
Okay, and then we jump into a montage. So, how do you fix this? When looking at a video as a whole, I like to do the exercise of cutting it in half, right? So I'll start with a long cut. It's way too long. I'll say, okay, how can I cut pieces out of this video to reduce it to half the runtime, half the length, right? Which is brutal, right? I'm cutting out half of what we've shot, right? And we've included in the first rough edit. And then when we're done with that brutal cutting of length, do it again, right? Even more brutal, right? Now we're getting into like killing our darling children, right? Oh, I really like that moment, but it doesn't actually serve the story. And I keep doing this until there's literally nothing more to cut that won't just make the story not make sense anymore, that completely destroys the story. The other thing that I like to think about is show, don't tell. So we're talking a lot about, oh, we're going to lay a weld bead down here. These are going to slot together. We're going to make a wheel. So this is what the final cut looks like.
All right, so we got our parts from Sencut Send. We got aluminum parts the other day, so that'll be good for wheels and molding. This should be the frame parts.
They were all laser cut. They're all based on a flat pattern that just gets cut out in a profile out of a big sheet. A lot of them have notches and tabs that all interlock with each other. Once we tab them all together, we weld them up, and everything is just a really good fit right out of the packaging. So this is the base.
Boom.
This is the bottom.
We jump right
These
into
are the
it.
wheel wells.
We don't even need to show them unboxing it, right? Unboxing things, not interesting. So a lot of this storytelling actually happens after we record in the editing process. So I want to talk about some of the finer points of that. Editing really is the process of manipulating time. So most of the time, we're shrinking time down. We're taking long periods of time, and we're shrinking them into smaller pieces, right? We're either shrinking it down or we're removing pieces of time. There's a quote by the mathematician Blaise Pascal that says, I have made this, it was in a letter to a friend, and he said, I've made this longer than usual because I've not had time to make it shorter. Don't do that to your viewers, right? Don't make them sit through things because you're too lazy to trim it down and get it really tight, right? Respect their time. So when you're doing that, you still need to show the passage of time. So how do you do that? There's some different tools. There's time lapses like this. You can also just edit together moments, quick moments, from a longer build process. We added a bunch of sound effects to kind of punctuate it. So this is a stair railing. And I can tell you a pretty complete version of this in a few seconds for something that took me multiple days. Sometimes we also want to show the passage of time off camera.
All right, let's call it a day.
So we can use a fade to black to help illustrate that, say, a night has passed, a day has passed, a week has passed. So there's a fade to black here.
First step,
and then we come up on the next day.
Get this running again.
Good. You get it? I also like weaving
Super
in
nice guy.
Okay. Daily life as transitions between scenes.
Okay.
This worked really well when I lived in Shenzhen. So I'm using a street scene here to get me from one shop to another shop. High temperature. Okay.
All right, I'm going to do one or two more
The
of
other
these
thing I want to talk about is B-roll.
So maybe I'll give the real deal a shot.
Me tossing the thing in the bin is B-roll, right? I've got my main dialogue here, which would be my A-roll, or my dialogue, and then I've got this insert shot. These were filmed not at the same time. I just had one camera. I filmed this first, and then I came back later and I filmed that shot of me sticking something in the bin. So let me just rewind
All right,
that.
I'm going to do one or two more of these just for practice.
So I filmed this first,
Maybe
then
I'll
I filmed
give
that
the real
later,
deal a shot.
and I just stuck it over the top of the dialogue, right? So again, another way we're manipulating time of how things actually happened while I was shooting. Sometimes we want to cut out dialogue out of the same shot. So we've got one shot, I'm talking to camera, or somebody else is talking to camera. It's my friend Greg, he'll be in Prague with us.
Which is much easier to repair in the pits. We can weld the steel.
So that's what's called a jump cut, right? We cut from the same shot to another shot. Traditionally, in TV and film, this is like a no-no, you don't do it. In YouTube and social media and online video, this is becoming much more accepted, has become much more accepted, but there are ways to hide it if you want. So one is you can use B-roll, you can put B-roll over the top of it, you cut away to a close-up shot, come back to him, right? Maybe you cut away to a shot of him holding the thing, you don't have to shoot at the same time, you don't have to have two cameras, you just get him to hold it up and act like he's talking about it, and then you put that over the top. You can have multiple cameras if you're gonna be fancy about it, but most of the time we don't do that, it's too much work. But there's another trick. You can punch in. So you can just zoom in right after the jump cut and make it look like two shots.
Which is much easier to repair in the pits. But in order to get a good weld...
That's the punch in, right? Covers that nicely. It makes it look like I have two cameras even though I only have one. You can also expand time. So we've been talking about contracting time. You can expand time. If you've got like a really short moment that you want to focus on, you can use slow-mo. This is a shot of a UV inkjet printer spraying out ink, and we've got this really nice slow-mo shot of something that's very, very quick. You can also reorder time. So think flashbacks, flash forwards, where you're using like narration, a voiceover to say, hey, I didn't know at the time, but I know now, this is how this is gonna go, or whatever. You can also interleave storylines. So if you've got one story that's feeling kind of boring if you just run all the way through it, you can interleave it with another storyline, and that's another way of manipulating time out of order. What I haven't talked about is gear. And I love gear like anybody else. I'm a total gearhead, but I don't actually think it's that important, right? You have most of what you already need. I'm gonna go through it really quick. Cameras don't really matter that much. Your cell phone in your pocket, totally adequate to get started with. They record great video. We use footage from cell phones all the time in my videos. We have bigger cameras. It's mostly for convenience. They have a lot more like buttons and dials that make it easier to do certain stuff. We get a slightly better image out of them. It's not a barrier to making a great video. What is a barrier to making a great video is audio. If you have audio that sucks, people won't watch your video. They will click off. They'll get annoyed by it. Get yourself an external microphone. This is a little shotgun mic that plugs into the jack on your phone. There are a lot of other options. I don't recommend that you use lav mics. This is a very fancy lav type, headset mic that I've got on, but like a lav mic would be one that like clips to your shirt. They're a pain in the neck. It's really easy to have them rub on fabric. I really don't recommend them. We use them in factories, but it's when I've got someone who can like help me manage it and listen to it, make sure things aren't rubbing, and it's a pain in the neck. I try not to use them unless I have to. Lastly, lighting matters a lot more than your camera. If you want to make something look good, fix your lighting. Don't worry about your camera. One of the cheapest things to do is these little paper lanterns. They're called China balls in the film industry. They use them. Get one of these for a couple bucks, put it over a bare bulb, and now you've got a nice diffuse lighting that doesn't have like harsh shadows and makes things look a lot better. That's pretty much it. I want to leave you with one thing, and this is like, if you take anything away from this talk, it's that stories follow patterns, and that by learning those patterns, you can tell stories yourself. You don't have to invent it from scratch. You don't have to be some magical, creative person. So I hope that I've convinced you that stories are worth telling. So go out and tell some stories. Thank you.
Scotty Allen, everyone. Thank you for a great keynote.
Yeah.
Now it's time for questions from the audience.
Sure.
I just ask our colleagues to bring us the chairs.
Oh, awesome.
And if you haven't already, you can send in your question via the Advocacy app. So please, Scotty, sit down. By the way, how do you find this chair? Is it comfortable? Do you like it?
It is now that I've got the
Yeah?
microphone.
Okay,
The
cool.
microphone's falling off.
I'm
Hang
just asking for a friend who is, by the way, a manager of Fab Lab Brno, and he made those.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
I
just trying not
thought
to knock my
yeah.
microphone off and get in trouble with the guy back there.
I just thought it would
There.
be a nice climax to the story
they're
of a
gorgeous.
chair
Yeah.
that, like a renowned maker like you and superstar, would give a positive review.
Yeah,
on this
no, I
chair.
think they're
so
beautiful.
Thank you for doing
I wouldn't
that.
have guessed that these were locally and handmade. So.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't even believe it, but a few days ago, it's not in the script, a few days ago, I had a dream, or more like a nightmare, that this chair collapsed under me right here on this stage doing interview with you. So,
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not even joking.
I'm sorry I've induced such anxiety.
No, I think it's more about the chair.
Oh,
than
okay.
you. But yeah, let's go through Advocacy app. There are loads of questions from the audience, so that's great.
Excellent.
So first one, stories are great, but they often speak about a single person, the hero.
Sure.
How can we tell stories about communities?
I think that's a great question. And it's interesting when I've given this talk a couple times before, but I modified it a bunch for this audience and based on what I've learned in past talks. And actually, like, that was something that I considered including here. I think that, so Hero's Journey, I think, works with like an ensemble cast. It doesn't have to be a single person. I think you can go through those same journeys, but I still think that we want to highlight individual people because I think as the viewer, we still want to resonate with individuals and know something about them and identify with them. I think it's kind of inherent, but I think you can use a number of people to sort of build out different characters in your story. But I think ultimately, you can use the community as a whole as your hero, as you're thinking of going through that hero's journey, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next one, do you still have the original iPhone?
I do. It's sitting in bubble wrap in a box somewhere, but yeah.
Cool.
I do. I have been building out a new workshop over the past close to a year now, and one of the things I haven't set up is like a display area for all my finished projects. So.
Does it still work?
I think it probably needs a new battery,
Yeah,
but everything else should still work. Yeah.
What's the most unsustainable manufacturing process you have visited? What was disgusted you the most? What disgusted you the most in mass production? Wow.
Oh, okay.
Deep one.
Yeah, so we're talking about like unsustainable from like sustainability of the planet and human beings. I took it a different direction, which is like what is unsustainable as a manufacturing process in terms of, how do I say this? In terms of its efficiency. And I was going to say a lot of the things that I see in makerspaces are like very unsustainable in terms of they're not particularly mass producible. Yeah. So that's what immediately came to mind. That's a great question. I think I know where people are going with this. I I think probably some of the like chemical-based processes that I've seen in China are kind of the scariest from an environmental perspective. A couple that come to mind are, and I have to be very careful about this, which is that I'm a visitor, I'm a guest in a lot of the factories that I go to, and you don't get invited back if you really like criticize people to their face and make them look bad. And it's like doubly true in China, where saving face is really important to people. But what I will say is, like, as a couple examples, if you go look at the video that I made of making my own metal business cards, the etching part of the factory was actually across the street from the main factory, and the reason is because that street was the boundary between the city of Shenzhen and not Shenzhen, and they were not obeying Shenzhen's environmental practices well enough to have it inside Shenzhen. So they had rented the building across the street to put their etching plant, and that had some pretty like scary puddles of acid on the floor, and we were trying to shoot some photos to make the thumbnail for the video, and the boss said, "Oh, don't put your face that close to the machine." And I said, "Well, what about the guy who's standing there feeding the machine the whole day?" And he said, "Well, he goes outside and takes breaks between batches." I'm just going, "Oh my God." I think also my cameraman Ed and I were pretty sketched out when we went to go see a gold plating factory, which involves cyanide as one of the chemicals, and we were a little bit sketched out by the way they were operating. I think this is one of the ongoing issues for Chinese manufacturing, and I think Westerners think of all factories being this way, and by and large that's not true, right? I think there's more and more focus on this in China, and there's more and more focus by the government. It's being more and more regulated. But I think there are some cultural issues around sort of this idea of like things like worker safety is sort of considered to be like personal responsibility, and then the factory bosses say, well, I'm not going to force workers to wear protective equipment because they don't want to wear it, it's hot or it's uncomfortable or whatever. It's not an issue of like saving money generally. You know, basic things like protective eyewear and gloves and things like that are cheap. It's not about that. And the way we've solved that in the West, both in Europe and in the US, is that we have regulatory bodies that punish the factory owner, not the workers, and then the factory owner is required to make the workers wear the protective equipment. And I think that's where it should head, and there's some cultural barriers in the way. So that's a longer answer, but I feel like it requires more nuance than just saying, oh, China bad, gross, horrible. That's not true.
Thank you for the insight. Yeah. With AI now capable of generating videos, do you still think it's worth investing time in learning how to make good original videos?
Yes, 100%, so? Yes. But I think that it's changing the game. We certainly use AI in our process. You won't necessarily notice it. It's not like I'm generating full AI clips as part of our videos, but you know, for things like thumbnails, we want to make thumbnails really like visually succinct and quick to like visually process, see what's going on in the thumbnail. So we'll use AI to like paint out things that are distracting in the thumbnail, for instance. I use AI to work on scripts, to brainstorm ideas. So yes, and I will say that I'm watching AI-generated TikToks and enjoying them. So it's certainly going to push on things, but I think that we are entering an age of video where authenticity and connection with other humans is going to be prioritized above just entertainment. And I don't think AI is going to solve that need. I think that's going to be a response to the video ecosystems being flooded by AI-generated content. And so I think it's doubly important to put your face on camera, right? To tell real stories, to design that maker's journey, that hero's journey for yourself and actually go through it, to tell stories that resonate with people at a deeper level.
Agreed. What is your new machine or technology that you keep your eye on?
That's a great question. I've definitely been watching additive manufacturing 3D printing, but kind of a little bit broader than just kind of FDM printing, our typical filament printers. I think we're entering a phase where that's no longer just for hobbyists and prototyping, where we're really seeing production manufacturing with a bunch of different additive manufacturing technologies. And I think that's getting really interesting in big ways and is starting to really shift manufacturing, or is about to. So I think that's one of the things I'm keeping my eye on, but also AI. AI is definitely changing my business, even just kind of the back end of my business. I've been spending a lot of time learning about AI agents and model context protocols over the past couple of weeks to better understand my business and better manage our video production workflow and things like that. So,
are you more positive about AI or more scared?
Oh, I'm mostly positive. I think I'm more scared by how our governments are going to address the shifts in society, but I'm quite excited for what's coming.
Cool. Looking back, what skill or mindset helped you the most when hacking hardware or filming stories in places like Shenzhen?
I'm sorry, repeat the first part of that.
What skill or mindset helped you most when hacking hardware or filming stories in places like Shenzhen?
I think when you add the in place, so if you don't add the in places like Shenzhen, I would say persistence. And it's funny because I don't think of myself as a particularly persistent person, but a lot of people who watch my videos seem to take that away from my videos. It's mostly fear. It's fear of failure, of letting people down, and that makes me persistent. I have this feeling of I can't stop a project that I'm doing on camera without being able to explain why it's not possible. And I usually keep thinking of new approaches before I run out. So I usually end up succeeding by accident at some point along the way. In Shenzhen, I think, and when I'm telling stories overseas, I think a lot of it is just empathy, is really getting to know people, being polite, trying to understand local customs, being observant. When I made that first video of making my own iPhone, I just spent a lot of time walking through the markets and watching and trying to understand things and being nice to people and forging relationships. And I wouldn't, I'm definitely an introvert by nature. I play an extrovert on the YouTube, but...
You played very well.
Well, thank you. It's all a mask.
Wow.
But, often it would be really hard to go, to gear myself up to go out and shoot or go out and be in the markets. And I think my curiosity just sort of pulled me there, and just really spending time to figure it out, and kind of work through it. So.
We have one question addressing just that. When I film my work, I feel like it's taking my soul out. Any tips on making the filming more enjoyable?
Yeah, it's hard. I still feel that way. I don't know if I feel like it's taking my soul out, but it's I don't know. I'd be curious to ask more of what that means, it's taking my soul out. One aspect of filming things is anytime I'm doing anything on camera, if I'm filming it by myself and I've started hiring college students from the local university who are studying filmmaking to come in and shoot with me, and I try and have someone there 5 days a week now. But when I'm filming by myself, I spend a lot of time managing the camera and the lights and thinking about what the shot's going to be, and it just makes everything go really slowly. I usually use the rule of thumb of and this is more metaphorical, but that it will take anything that I do on camera is going to take me 5 times as long if I don't do it on camera, which can be agonizing and definitely inhibits me from wanting to work on things on camera. So I think that's one piece, is just knowing that it's going to take a long time. If you can get another person to help you film, you can move a lot faster and let them worry about the camera and the shots, and you just forge ahead on the project. That helps. I think the other thing is
is just practice. You know, you saw that clip that I showed of one of the first things that I filmed for Strange Parts, and it's really awkward when you start out. And it I won't say it necessarily gets less awkward, right? You're talking to this amorphous black blob, right? And you're trying to like imagine that it's a person and interact with it like it's a person. You're trying to build some sort of connection between you and this viewer that doesn't exist in that moment. But it's a skill. And I think I've gotten both better at it and less sensitized to it. So I think part of it is just push through it and know that it's something you can practice and get better at. And it's something that definitely doesn't feel as awkward to me now. It's still awkward, don't get me wrong. That never goes away. But it doesn't bother me as much as it did before.
And Scotty, how do you deal with the exposure to hateful comments on videos?
Great question. So a couple different answers. I mean, one, you just become callous. You see enough comments that are hateful and mean that you kind of just, you learn to let it roll off. I think, you know, I could talk about this for an hour. This is something that I think—
1 minute.
Yeah, I think this is something that like plagues a lot of creators, and in many cases it causes people to stop making things publicly. I think one thing to know is that like negative comments, like the balance between how you feel after one negative comment and 100 good comments, like that's about right. It's like 1 to 100. Right? It's very easy to dismiss good comments and to focus on those bad comments. I try just to not read them and like not absorb them. One of the things that I've done is actually I now have moderators that moderate YouTube comments, and I just try not to look at the bad. You know, I try not to look at the raw feed. I kind of look at after they've cleaned things up. My YouTube channel is my home. You're in my home. We have certain rules about how you can behave there, and if you're going to be a jerk, like I don't want you there. And we're pretty liberal with the banhammer, like, and it makes my comments a nicer place. I don't think that it has to be this like absolute free speech free for all. And after a long time of banning people, it just gets to be a nicer place because you weed out the people who are just jerks. I think the other thing that I've learned to do is so I do read comments straight off the bat, but I only read them for like a couple hours after I upload a video, because those are the people that are going to be the most supportive, right? They're my like hardcore fans who like click on a video as soon as I upload it. And then at some point I see a couple mean comments go through and I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I kind of put it away and focus on the next thing. Yeah. So I could say a lot more about that. But.
Yeah, but thank you for sharing. Yeah. Thank you for answering all the questions that we have time for now. Thank you for a wonderful keynote. Enjoy the FAB25, Scotty.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Scotty Allen, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, in a few moments, we are about to welcome on stage another maker superstar. We are so incredibly grateful to have a general partner who truly understands what this community is about, because he's lived it. His journey is a true maker's dream, from a hobby project to one of the leading tech companies in Czech Republic and a global 3D printing giant, Prusa Research. They've helped put Prague on the map as a 3D printing capital of the world. They've been supporting the maker movement both here at home and abroad, and they co-design one full day of FAB25. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who started it all, the founder and CEO of Prusa Research, Josef Prusa. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Hi, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. Do not worry, I will be quick. You know, it is late, but I have to say, I would have never guessed when I was meeting Scotty. Now I dare to say my good friend for the first time in Shibuya, Tokyo. I would have never guessed that we would get to hang out in Brno. And that just says how amazing our community is. And, you know, I see some faces that I, too, would not ever guess that we would get to hang out in Brno. Anyways, I am so grateful, and I want to thank all of you that you came here. And I have to admit one thing. I am not starstruck that often, but today and for the upcoming week, we have the two absolute legends of our movement at the same spot. Dale, the guy behind Make, and Neil, the guy behind the whole Fab Lab movement. And I think both of them deserve a huge applause. I am just a noob compared to these guys, but I am incredibly proud that I can help support this movement in any way possible. And especially for us here, it is very personal because just a few short decades ago, thanks to the communism, we've had to make things out of necessity and to survive. And we are very fortunate nowadays that we can make things for fun, for personal growth, or to start great new things. So with that, I hope you will enjoy the upcoming week, and I hope to see all of you next Thursday on Prusa Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Josef Prusa, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy the FAB25. Thank you for your support. And guys, you can mark in your calendar that July 10th is Prusa Day, the whole day dedicated to 3D printing. You can look forward to hands-on workshops, factory tours, inspiring talks. Just put it in your schedules in the Advocacy app. Okay, we're almost at the end of day 1 of FAB25, but don't head off just yet. It's a time for a day wrap-up. The evening warm-up after party is about to start at 8:30 p.m. right here in the theater lobby and outside the theater. You can look forward to live music. Performing tonight is Noisy Pots, a Czech duo that turns buckets, pots and DIY percussions into super fun and original mix with synths and vocals. And with them, Tanita Janková. She is a singer, songwriter, and co-author of Czech Eurovision song My Sister's Crown. Maybe you've heard it in the radio. So you can look forward to that. They start playing at 8:30 p.m. Before that, if you would like to have some drinks, snacks, you can enjoy them in foyer or piazzetta. And if you need anything, there is an info point in the ground floor. So if you do need any help or assistance, just go there and our wonderful colleagues will help you. This theater, this place will be closing at 11. It is for you to have a good night's sleep, because tomorrow we'll be opening doors at 8 a.m. and the program will start right here on this stage at 9 a.m. sharp. So please be on time, be here and be ready. And if you'd like to share any photos, videos, stories, reels, everything on social media, we would be grateful if you could add hashtag #BridgeTheGap or tag our social media. We are FAB25. Okay, guys, enjoy the evening, enjoy the first networking party, and see you tomorrow right here at 9 a.m.